Welcome to another LSB film podcast. I hope everyone's well. Today's guest has been making waves at the intersection of media, freedom, and grassroots activism. She is the founder of Freedom Digital Media, the voice behind The Great Resist, and the driving force of farmers, food and freedom. A campaigner, a builder, and a challenger of the status quo. Liz Phillips is here to talk about the fight for freedom, the future of farming, and why resisting top-down control matters more now than ever. This is going to be a powerful conversation, so let's dive in.
Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
And so, yes, welcome back to the show, the lovely Liz Phillips.
I think you need glasses, Chris, but I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I got your name wrong or something then. No, I mean what I say and I say what I mean. So, how are things your end? And that's not a
we're
body
not doing
reference.
too badly. We're not doing too badly, Chris, at all. We're very, very busy with our own, like you, we have our own broadcast channels, as you know. Plus, we've got the Great Resist. We've got a big event coming up at the end of September. And also, we started the Farmers' Food and Freedom Party earlier this year. And we're just about to really get into gear with that. So it's all go. I had hoped to retire about 5 years ago and go and grow plants in the polytunnels and on the farm, but it just hasn't worked out that way.
No, but everything happens for a reason, and I guess this is a good a reason as any. So, with the state of the world today, I know that you wanted to talk about the ridiculous overspending of net zero, and we want to touch on the quangos, and we want to do all that. And so, I would just love to start off with then, because let's just also touch on the fact that you are part of the Farmers Food and Freedom organization, which is a more political side of you, which is nice to see. So with what we're going to be talking about, if you were in government tomorrow, what is the first net zero policy you would scrap or reform to save taxpayers money, and why?
The first thing I'd do is scrap net zero. The National Grid alone has said to upgrade it to take all the wind and solar would cost over £3 trillion. Now, we're in a hell of a deficit, as we know at the moment, and to do that, you save 0.0005% of emissions, which are infinitesimal. You can't even begin to see the emissions that are going up there now, but that would save 0.0005 emissions for £3 trillion just to upgrade the national grid. Now, does that put things in perspective?
How many zeros is trillion?
It's don't ask me. I
Something
give
like
up. I've only
16
just
or yeah,
something like that. 3 trillion. That's just to upgrade the national grid. That is not Liz Phillips's figures. That is the national grid's own figures. That is what the cost will be to save 0.0005 emissions. I can't emphasize it enough so that people understand the stupidity of this guy called Miliband. I don't know who's funding him, where his money's coming from. He hasn't got a brain cell between the ears. He certainly hasn't got any common sense. And this is all costing. Industry has gone down the pan, as you know. Our industrial base has just disappeared. Chris, when I was 18, 19, I did my A-levels. And part of my A-levels in geography was doing the industries of this country. Now, we're talking nearly 60 years ago. All those industries, everyone has gone or is on its dying legs. And this is what our base was. Now, it doesn't have to be like this. We've got small nuclear reactors which you can pop up. We've got somebody in the north of England who can actually pop up, if you like, small power stations. They've got the blueprint for it. They've been waiting for funding. Everybody says yes, yes, yes. But of course, the government don't want to fund these things because they work.
Mm.
Everything that works will not be funded. And I'm just waiting to. I've actually spoken to him many times. Wonderful chap in the northeast of England. Geordie Land produces a lot of entrepreneurs, as you know. You can have pop-up power stations round the country with either mostly with coal, but coal or gas, and that could power industry with no problem at all. And of course, these days the emissions with the recent scientific progress, the emissions aren't like they were. Smoke doesn't belch out like it used to, etc., etc. But where you've got a government that is trying to stop cows farting because of
And most of
methane.
it
I mean,
comes from the
you
burp as
cannot.
well.
Sorry.
Most of it comes from burping.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't fathom how we've got to this, how we've got to such a low standard of IQ. Anyway, that's talking about that. We go on to talk about quangos. We
Hmm.
have over 300 non-governmental bodies, if you like, NGOs, 300 over 300 quangos in the UK. Now these are
Just
all
can
the
you just remind people or let people know for thickos like you had to do for me before I hit record, what is a bloody quango?
Well, Quango is an offshoot of government, a body of people in various different areas, from health to net zero to policing, you name them. They're like think tanks, if you like. We have over 300 of these. And believe it or not, just to fund them costs 200 billion per annum. Okay.
Could we include the
Now,
WEF as one of these think tanks?
sorry?
Could we include the World Economic Forum as one of
No,
those?
no, 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 no. These are internal ones,
Oh,
Chris.
right.
These are
Okay.
just
Sorry.
UK based.
Okay.
Nothing to do. No, we're looking internally at the moment.
Right.
I, I'm trying desperately to cope with what's going on here,
Okay.
although
Well,
I know what's
they
going
are
on in.
everywhere, to be honest. They have infiltrated, so they are going to be here as well. But yeah, I
Yes,
hear what you're saying.
but if you like, it's the local organisations that are costing us. Now they're costing us 200 billion per annum. Now that's the cost of us with their wages, etc., etc., premises, you name it. That's that cost. But on top of that, they then cost and run 350 billion. So if you look at the cost of these alone, you're talking at 350 billion. If you add that on to 3 trillion for the cost of net zero, you know, the whole thing is just ridiculous.
It's
You
just a
know,
money spinner.
absolutely. And all these people, of course, all these people that are in these organisations will all go on then for pensions, etc. They will all be in pension jobs. The whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous.
So, how many of
I
these net zero quangos then do you think could be scrapped without affecting the
well,
essential services? Or
we've
do you
got
think
over
that's just a
three.
load of guff?
We've got over 300. I'd scrap over 300 and start again. I just get rid of all these, if you like, hangers on. If we haven't got people in Parliament or the backup in the civil service, then the people that we've got there need to go. We need to have a complete rethink. This is absolutely ridiculous is not the word for it.
Mm.
I can't find a bad enough word that won't have us shut down or thrown
Can
off.
you think of at least three, as I hold up four, can you think of at least, oh no, I'm doing 666, bollocks. Can you think of three organization think tanks that would be justified to be there?
Well, you've
Ones
got
that
all
you,
these offices for budget responsibility. You name it in that sort of level, Chris. If I talk about office of
hmm.
budget responsibility, look at this. When the government came into power, they were supposed to have gone to people like the Office of Budget Responsibility to say what are the total figures for the UK at the moment, okay? And then after they've been to there, then suddenly Rachel Reeves says, we've got a 21 billion hole black hole. Well, if they were given the correct figures for these people, now either they were given the correct figures and the government are lying and say they've now got a £21 billion black hole, or the figures were wrong in the first place. So why have we got these people? Okay,
Mm.
these are the sort of things, and you publish that right across the board into every part of our being. From education, all these places have got these bubbles of people behind them in these what we call quangos. It's got to stop.
Is that a little bit like, would you classify Sage as one of those then?
Do I crass?
Sage, as
No,
in
I think Sage, the accounts people.
the people that done COVID and they did all the
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry,
models.
sorry. Yes, absolutely. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry. I was
that's all
thinking
right.
of, yeah, wrong Sage. Yes, yes, yes. All these people have been brought in to look at or to spend the money. They're like advisors, if you like. Well, we should have people, Chris, that are in government that come from all walks of life in the
Mm.
first place. All we've got is a load of failed lawyers and people who, quite honestly, they wouldn't even stir the tea in the office that I've worked in the past, or they wouldn't work for me at all, any of them, as you can probably imagine. But it's not rocket science. It's
No.
just the will behind it all. You couple all that, they talk about immigration. Last year alone, or in this last 12 months, we've issued 850,000 visitor visas to this country.
Hmm.
Now, we don't track these people. We've got no method of tracking. So, what are these people doing?
Well, they're not
There's
out on the
nothing.
farms.
I've got, you say that you can't believe, being a farmer's daughter and working on farms all my life. Okay, many of these people have come in for cheap labour, but where do you see adverts now in universities? All university students in the old days used to queue up to go out on farms, etc., to do fruit picking, etc., in the holidays, etc. There's
Mm.
nothing now to make people responsible, and all you see is students coming out as they used to come out with sort of a small figure. They're now coming out over £30,000 in debt. Now that debt isn't going to be paid, so it's going to be written off, isn't it? Who pays for it at the end of the day? And if you go on to talk about this, the first thing that I would do is scrap tuition fees for what we call the stem cells,
Well,
science,
I still
technology.
don't quite understand why it's only the English that pay it because the Scottish are subsidised by the English.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
If you look at the
assuming the
farm.
Welsh are as well, but
Yes,
I don't know.
yes, the Welsh, Scotland is a different entity really in a way, but the Wales and England, if you look at as being the same, but if you scrapped the tuition fees for stem cells, science, technology, engineering, and medical,
Mm.
these are the people we need. It's poor people who have got some idea of what money is all about don't go to university anymore. So we lose people from poorer backgrounds who've got fantastic brains, don't go to university to do the things that we need. And so all we've got is to me, is a load of dross coming out.
Mm.
The whole, I can't understand. I blame myself and our generation, Chris, because we've allowed all this to happen. The creep through the institutions has come under our watch. Now, of course, we were all busy when we were sort of 35, 40. We were all busy like people are these days. You've got trying to put a mortgage, trying to put a home over a roof over your head, trying to look after children, bring them up through schooling and what have you. And you're really busy. But we've got time now and can see what's happened. It's time to stop.
100%. And even though I'm really busy, the way that I help is just trying to spread awareness about what's going on. I might not be one of the key players like yourself or Mark Byford, Bold Hat Farmer, or Victoria Rixon, or all these amazing, wonderful people, but I'm just out there shouting a little bit with a croaky voice. But yeah, it's not good, is it? It's really not good. And when you think what this country and what we as taxpayers pay compared to even I heard an LBC radio person, and we know how woke they are. he said that they'd gone to somewhere in Spain, I think it was, and he'd brought a round of drinks and they had some food and that, and it come to about 20 odd quid. And he said it was that at that point his jaw went that he realized just how royally financially raped we are.
Well, I can tell you now that we've got some wonderful people. A man who I interview very often from New Zealand over at the moment, Jamie Moody. I've been doing an awful lot of work with New Zealand over the years. They're the forgotten country at the bottom end of the planet, if you know, and they've
Mm.
had an equally bad time, if not even worse than us. And Jamie and his wife are over at the moment, and the four of us went out to lunch in a local pub miles from anywhere the other day. For us for lunch, £247. And we had two courses. We did have a bottle of wine, and the men had, I think, a couple of pints of beer each. I was driving, so I couldn't, and Jamie's wife was driving, so she couldn't either, except at £247, two courses. You know, it's that to me is over a week's pension for four people to go out for lunch.
240 quid was probably what I was earning a week. Probably about
Yeah, but I mean,
six,
but that's
5 or 6 years ago.
and you know, the wonderful local pub. I've got no problem with that. Quite busy because it was the bank holiday, the last bank holiday, the August bank holiday weekend. The only person that was serving the customers, both behind the bar, taking the money, taking the orders, as I say, serving from the kitchen, was the landlady. No staff anymore. They
No,
can't afford staff.
no, they can't.
And they've got to, this weekend, the bank holiday weekend, that money has got to carry them forward. You know, I'm not cross with them. I'm just cross with the way it's happened. I've had three restaurants of my own, so I know what things cost. And now you've got all the extra costs of national
It's
insurance
horrendous.
gone.
No, it is. It's horrendous. I suppose there's only one flippant flip side with restaurants and things like that, is that with all the state-sponsored government holiday makers coming over, that where they've been using up all these hotels, that I suppose the ones which aren't accommodating for those, their business might be seeing a nice increase because the competition has just died off in it because they were all taken by um suitcase citizens. But going back to the quangos,
Yeah.
would you like to see like a full review then of all the net zero and agricultural quangos to expose their true cost to the public?
Yes. The problem is that people aren't doing it, Chris. The true cost, I think if you look at the cost now of net zero, and the borrowing that we've got, I think we're looking at £88,000 per person in the UK.
It's a lot.
£88,000 in debt. Now you could say, and I have my terrible difficulty getting my head around this, who do we owe the debt to? You know, let's think about this. We're
Well, money is
printing,
just, I don't understand because money is created on debt.
yes,
So the minute you create a pound note, the debt, the bank then lend that pound out with interest. So straight away there's a debt added to it. So you will never repay debt. You can't
yeah,
repay debt. There's more debt than there is money.
no, absolutely. You know, when you look at the banks, the other thing that I don't know whether your listeners are aware of, that the banks now, from the end of this year, if you're over 65, doesn't matter what industry you're in or whether you're retired or whatever, if you want to take money out of your bank, you have got to explain why you want it. Okay, so you go to the bank. I went to the bank last year, wanted £400, and the lady behind the bank said to me, an older person, she said, "Madam, what do you want it for?" Now, you know, I've got a face like Queen Victoria and Boadicea all rolled into one. I never answered, and she looked up because there was no answer coming. And she looked at my face and she said, "I'm so sorry, madam, but I had to ask." And the money came over the counter without me saying a word. But now, if you want to borrow in some banks, it's over, not borrow, if you want to take out over £500 in some banks or over 1,000 in others, you've got to explain why. If they're not happy with your explanation, not only will they refuse to let you have the money, they can freeze your account.
This is
Now,
because they
think,
would always argue that once your money goes into the bank account, it's no longer your money anymore.
Absolutely. So what should everybody be doing, Chris?
Buying gold or
Certainly,
buying
they should be getting their
precious
money out of the
metals.
bank. That's all I can say. These
Mm.
banks don't deserve anything. But of course, it will have come the instruction will have come down from on high. But that is the situation where people now, if you take a farmer, just take a farmer for instance, wants to go and buy a tractor, a little old tractor to run around the farm, which we've just bought. Now, if I went to the bank and said, please, I want to take out £2,000, I want to go and buy a tractor and I'm paying cash, as that's the way it's going to be, they're going to say, what at your age? I don't
Mm.
think I don't think you can possibly drive a tractor at your age.
But also, wouldn't that be rather ageist?
Well, can I just say that wouldn't give it? They wouldn't give a damn to that. But
Um,
seriously, this is
yeah.
how it's going to be, and it's just absolutely outrageous. How dare anybody ask what I want my money for?
So, how much of this would you say that the farmers are carrying out the costs of Quango decisions that don't really reflect real world farming experiences?
I didn't quite catch that question. Say again, Chris. Sorry.
Right, okay, bear with me then. I've got to refind it again. So, do you think that the farmers are carrying out the costs of the Quango decisions that don't reflect real world farming experience?
Well, farmers, unfortunately, because of the way they are, do normally carry out whatever instruction comes down the line to them, and that's half the problem. These days, if you look, they're being paid to come out of food production. They're
Mm.
being paid to rewild, plant trees,
Or grow
anything
some
except.
or grow some solar panels.
And well, don't talk to me. We've just got the problem with the solar and wind farms. Of course, we just said that they're absolutely useless anyway. But they're taking good agricultural land. We have down here on Romney Marsh, I live in Kent, Chris, and we've got Romney Marsh is grade one, grade two agricultural land. They just want to take 200 hectares, not acres, hectares. I can't get my head around hectares. Um,
Is that
um,
smaller than
about
larger?
400 acres of good
Oh,
agricultural land for solar farms and these storage units and these battery storage units. A If you saw where they wanted it, how they're going to install them, I don't know, because like most marshlands, the roads are single track roads to get to it, with dikes on either side, water filled dikes on either side. That's the first thing. And what a complete and utter travesty to reduce to 0.00005% of emissions. It's just ludicrous.
it's
And we're
pathetic.
fortunately there's a lot of people fighting now to say this is not going ahead.
Which is good. I mean, if you could redirect every pound currently spent on net zero Congos, how would you use it to directly benefit, say, farming, food security, and ordinary families?
Well, first of all, you need to get the price of food down. So I don't. There's a lot of people say farmers shouldn't have subsidy. I don't agree with that necessarily, Chris, because if you look, farming is one of the few industries that is dependent on the weather. Okay,
Hmm.
now with the weather manipulation and the geoengineering that's going into weather at the moment, farmers are suffering badly in that respect. Now, in the old days, farmers, if they had say a crop failure, then they could go to the government and get a payment. Because if you've got 100 acres, say, have gone of wheat, and that has failed because of something outside your control, you shouldn't have to pay for that. A farmer should have that should be subsidised. Okay. Now, I don't necessarily agree with subsidies for on everything, but when you've got hill farmers that can do nothing else other than sheep and bullocks and cattle, for instance, you've got to give them some sort of help. You can't expect, if they did everything, Chris, and did everything at market value, it would be the cost would be in some cases prohibitive. So they do need some form of assistance. I don't say that they don't.
Mm.
So, but you need to bring back things like the milk marketing board, the egg marketing board, the potato marketing board, all the individual sort of cooperatives that used to help market the goods that farmers produce. They've all gone.
Mm.
We're
Okay.
replaced by absolutely useless things. We've also got something called the National Farmers Union, which is another useless entity that does nothing for farming at all. But farmers themselves, through Mark Byford, are kicking back, and
Mhm.
they're going back to the original ways of farming, where goodness is put back into the land by doing
Right.
mixed
Okay.
farming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hold ye horses there because I was going to ask you a question on farming.
Go
Do
on.
you think farmers need to be braver, though, in standing up to government policies, especially those tied to net zero, rising costs, and the endless red tape? If so, what would that bravery actually look like in practice?
Well, Chris, it's going to be the only way, I'm afraid. Now, I've been talking at great length to a chap that you've also interviewed called Clive Edwards,
Shout out to
and
Clive.
Clive is absolutely fantastic. These farmers have got to come out of being citizens of the UK and have got to become pull out of the system. I don't know whether you know, but when we had COVID, we had something called a PCR test, didn't we?
We did.
Which was absolutely useless. And when you look at the PCR testing, they're now going to use this for animal testing for things like
Bird flu.
bird flu. I was going to say COVID-19. That's not the case at all. Blue tongue, foot and mouth. We know that they're trying to decimate the food industry, completely decimate it. And there are all sorts of papers that's showing in 2029 that say beef and lamb will be finished by 50%. So there's all sorts of papers that these quangos have produced at great cost to say that we need to reduce by this amount. So farmers have got to hit back. First of all, they've got to come out of being citizens of the UK to become part of God's people. There's ways for them to do that. And then they've got to get together, all of them, without going through anybody else. The farms themselves have got to get together and say, right, what do we produce? And
Oh, you're frozen. She's frozen midair. Not midair. You're not flying, are you? Hello, Liz. Hello, Liz.
then they're going to PCR test. PCR testing is absolutely useless.
Yes, it is. No, it is. Absolutely useless. I totally agree with you. Um, so what would you say then? Would a stronger collective of action of farmers shift public opinion in their favor? If we had like a huge amount of farmers all starting to pull together, that would obviously then have a knock-on effect in the public. I think that would garner more public support if the public could see more action being taken by the farmers.
Yes, the problem is like everything else, Chris. The mainstream media, thank God for us, all of us in the alternative media. You said earlier, you were very, as humble's probably not the right word, but you were um, knocking yourself down an awful lot by saying that I don't do much. Now, absolute rubbish. The more people that we all reach, it doesn't matter who it is, the more people we reach, it's the only way. The mainstream media, look at all the farmers that demonstrated in London. Complete waste of
Hmm.
time. They're not reported. They've just got to get together with their local communities. Farmers' Food and Freedom is for farms, for hamlets, and for villages. For every member of these three areas, if you like, to get together. And then we look at the towns and cities afterwards. The towns and cities will only wake up that they don't understand farming when they've got no eggs, no chicken meat, and no nothing else on the shelves. It is coming. It is coming so fast. If you've got an egg at home, if you've got some flour, egg, and milk, you can make a meal, is the way I always look at it.
Hmm.
If you haven't got these things, if you've got no wheat, therefore you've got no flour, if you've got no dairy, you've got no milk, and if you've got no chickens, you've got no eggs, then what do you do?
Go
This
hungry.
is the problem. But that's how cities will wake up. We've
Hmm.
got to get the farming communities, the villages, the hamlets, and the farms all on one side, and then work with them, and then we can work into the towns and cities afterwards.
Absolutely. Now, would you say, like, maybe over like the span of the last 5 years, how much more aware would you say the farmers are compared to where they were at the start of COVID? Because I think
Oh,
COVID's it's been a huge catapult for
yeah.
awakening of all kinds of things.
It's not just then, Chris. We had foot and mouth brought about by the last Labour government back at the early 2000s, which I was heavily involved in supporting farmers on then. And so when you look at it, farmers have been waking up slowly. But now there are a number of farmers groups, not just ours, but there are Farmers to Action. I can't tell you all the groups that are setting up locally. And the general public, and this is, you have to take your hat off again to people like Mark, the bowler hat farmer, and the Food Finders Hub, all these
Hmm.
organisations that are getting out there so that people can get affordable food. Why would I pay £1.15 for a cauliflower in a supermarket when I can buy it for a farmer up the road for the same price? The problem for the farmer up the road, he sells it to the supermarket for probably about 8 or 10 pence, but
Well,
we still pay.
I have to say that last Christmas, Mark, as a thank you, not sure what for, but as a thank you, he brought round a one of those cardboard boxes of fruit and veg. And my goodness, you can tell the difference.
I know.
It lasted into up until probably about early March, some of it. It just stays fresh,
Yeah,
which goes to show you that the stuff that's on the shelves in Tesco's, like your broccoli wrapped up in self film or whatever you call it, that's probably a year old or something. I don't know. They've probably done something to it. So that's why it goes off so quickly once you get it home.
it's terrible. And I mean, I'm on 10, we are on 10 acres here, Chris, so we grow most of our own as well.
Oh,
So
that's
I
lovely.
totally agree. And it tastes so much different. But I would still rather give the farmer up the road £1.15 for a cauliflower than I would give a £1.15 for a cauliflower in the supermarket. The other thing that people don't realise is that when you go into the supermarkets, you don't think price fixing is a thing until you go round, and I go round and have a look. Why is every cauliflower in every supermarket £1.15? Whether it's Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Asda, you name it, they're all the same prices across it's absolutely madness. And I was learning the other day there's a big farm down in Cornwall producing cauliflowers, and in his local town, just up the road, they were selling, I think, in Marks and Spencer's food store, cauliflowers from Spain. And
Really.
yet there he is, about 2 miles down the road, literally, with a field full of cauliflowers.
It
We've got to
is
stop
ridiculous.
this.
I've always been against industrial farming, mass farming. I've always been a believer and I know it's easy to say in an ideal world, but I always think that local farms should source the food and be the sources for local people. The only thing that I would miss not going to a supermarket is your more naughty foods, which I know, like your guilty pleasure foods, like your chocolates and those things. Because if you buy those not from, it's just this, then, isn't it? You're paying so much. So,
Yeah, I think you'd soon learn to do without, Chris. Fresh food is absolutely vital, and providing that you can get farms together so that they're not all producing the same thing, or they're diversifying. This is the
mm,
way forward. Going back to the small mixed farm that did nearly everything. And when you come to our Great Resist events, this is what we talk about all the time, all the ways round that you can get rid of all these things that we're just talking about now. There are so many ways round. You up in Thetford, I came up and did a Great Resist event with you earlier this year, which was absolutely fantastic. But look at Thetford, you've got Thetford Council Watch. Now, sometimes we can't do anything with the national government, although I'd like to get in front of them, but you never can, but you can do things locally. And the council watches that I think Thetford have got something similar, but the wonderful Rachel Matthews, I'll give her a plug
Hmm.
because I can't say enough about Rachel. And council watches across the country now because your local councillors can be brought to account. And we've got the wonderful Nicholas Martin, who is a councillor himself in Wokingham, and he's woken up on the 5G side. His council officials that he was working alongside all thought that with the ICNIRP certificates and everything, that 5G was totally safe. Well, of course, his knowledge and everybody else's knowledge says this is far from the case. So there's so much you can do on a local. It's not just, I'm talking about national things, but we can do these things locally. Stop
I think
the
it has to
solar
be
and
done
wind.
locally.
Sorry?
It has to be done locally.
Absolutely. We can't, and that will trigger up. The other thing that went wrong, people don't realise that in my lifetime, councils used to be full of independent councillors. There was no party councillors going back to my early days. In fact, when I was in Mid Wales, our council was probably the last of the independent councils to go because everybody just stood for the local community. You just stood for your ward. It didn't matter what you voted. You
Yeah,
weren't, you
that's
didn't
right.
stand.
Councils are supposed to be apolitical.
I would have that straight back to independence, and
Mm.
that would cut out so much of the line going up, if you like.
The whip.
We just have got to get back to some sort of working for the people, and not us working for them working for us.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And this is also where I really respect and admire Graham, Graham Moore,
Oh, can I just
because
tell you, I
yeah, go on.
can't say enough about Graham Moore and the English Constitution Party. And what I love about him, Clive Edwards, and all these people, they're not people that have been brought up, have gone to university and come up through the grammar school system, then on to university, then through law school and what have you. They've done it themselves.
Mm.
They're pulled up by their bootstraps, as we used to say in the old. Don't even know whether you can say that these days, can you? Pulled up by your
I don't know.
bootstraps. But that's what we used to say, and they've done it all. They would call themselves ordinary people. I call them extraordinary because of the work that they've done. But Graham's been doing it for 30 years. And what he doesn't
Inspirational.
know about the law, he's just had to school two King's Counsels and two barristers in what you do with the law. I did something similar years ago, Chris. I went to the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Um, Somebody was trying to make us bankrupt. I got no money to pay a solicitor or barrister. I stood up in the Royal Courts of Justice in the public gallery. And when the number came round to make us bankrupt, I stood up and said, stop. And the whole court just stopped. And the judge looked up at me because he was down below and the public gallery was up above. He said, can I help you? What is the problem? I said, this is totally incorrect. I had no idea about common law or natural law. He said, oh, and he turned to a barrister and he said, have you anything to say? And the barrister said no. And he said, looked up and said, my dear, would 3 months be all right for you to get this sorted out? I said, it most certainly will. And I went out to the and they didn't make us bankrupt. And because you just stand up. And Graham Moore said the other day he didn't use any of the Freeman of the Land stuff. He just stood up and explained to the judge exactly what had gone on and what was wrong.
Mhm.
And that's all you need to do. That's all I did was to say, stop, this is totally incorrect. You don't need a barrister or a solicitor, just use your common sense. But where I have fallen down, and I went to court some years ago, Chris, and I stood up. I had no idea about the words litigant in person. I do now, but I didn't then. And there was a solicitor, the judge, and myself. And the judge said to this solicitor, she won't know what we're talking about, will she? And I thought, how dare you? My English is pretty good. I did A-level English, funny enough, but it's pretty good and whatever. But I had no idea that there's Black's Law and
Mhm.
English law. So they were using the Black's Law dictionary and the words mean totally different. The words we all think we know are mean something totally different. And it's only recently this happened many years ago, but this only recently when I realised what they were saying that I wouldn't
Absolutely.
understand. because
our good friend Bob Says went to Ipswich Magistrates Court, and he went in there. Obviously, there was no record of his name being there because it's not really the magistrates' court. And he went in there and he went, right, pulled out an English Oxford
yeah,
and a Black's Law and said, which language will we speaking today? And he said, today we will be speaking English. He went, okay, just so I know. So yeah.
right. But people have got no idea that
No.
the words, the normal words we use, mean something totally different in legalese. We have got to go back to working under the lawful system and not the legal system. And people have got to understand the difference. And Graham Moore and Clive Edwards have done a wonderful job in making it understandable in words of one syllable for the average man to understand.
Yep. Yep. And the one thing that unites both of them is God.
Yes,
As in
absolutely.
the English Constitution is all written. It's pretty much like the Ten Commandments, isn't it?
Yep, the Bible.
Yeah, and that's the
Now,
way. That's where Clive comes from.
yep, when you look at it, Farmers' Food and Freedom, what we've said in our manifesto, Chris, is that we wish to repeal all laws that don't refer to causing harm, loss, or injury to people, or where people are not honourable in their contracts. If you and I make a contract and we shake hands, that should be it, Chris.
Hmm.
So we want to repeal all laws that have got nothing to do with causing harm, loss, or injury, because that's really all you need.
Of course, it is. That's all anyone needs.
Yeah. And when you look at, I didn't realise, I realised that there were two O's and two crowns, but I've just done an interview, I think, with Clive rather, and when you've got one that's in the legalese side and one that's in the lawful side, I mean, how many people understand these things? We've got to all wake up. I've learnt more in the last 5 years than I've done in the previous 70 odd. So I tell you, but we're getting there, aren't
Does
we?
your head hurt? Oh.
We
Well,
are getting
listen,
there.
it's been lovely speaking with you, Liz. Just remind us when the Great Resist is and who's talking.
Right, we're at 27th of September. That's just under a fortnight now, Chris,
Yep.
at Hereford Racecourse. And we've got so many good speakers, including everybody understands Andrew Bridgen. Now, when you look at Graham Moore, he's just won a case in the High Court because there were electoral interference, shall we say that,
Hmm.
possible electoral interference because it's not been proved yet, in Helsby and Runcorn in the last election there. Well, when you look at what happened to Andrew Bridgen, when you've got boxes on a car park for 4 hours in a dark car park, and then he's expected to get over 30% of the vote and ends up with three. I wonder if that's something similar there. So we've got Andrew Bridgen
Mm.
talking. We've got so many. We've got Clive Edwards is coming himself. We've got Mark the bowler hat farmer and David Baggott. David Baggott also wears a bowler hat, so we've got two bowler hats better than one. We've got two farmers. Also on that side, we've got Roger Meacott, the vet, talking about PCR testing in animals. We've got Sandra Murphy coming over to talk about the work that she's done
Hmm.
for food so that the
Horses.
right food goes into animals so that the right meat comes out because she's working on now on the bovine side. We've got direct democracy. We've got um, people talking about the police force. We've got the wonderful Kimberly Isherwood talking about Public Child Protection Wales, talking about child sex education. And I could go on. Mark Steele. Mark Steele has taken the Transport for London. He's another Graham Moore, if you like, on the cameras and the ULEZ. And
Hmm.
hopefully, in a fortnight's time, we should have the result of his court case in London. He stood up on his own against the barrister. When the barrister for TfL was asked, would you like to cross-examine Mr. Steele? They said, no. I think Mark's 60 odd exhibits trumped anything that this poor man who was supposed to be representing TfL could do. So let's hope that Mark Steele has got the same result as Graham has,
Oh, I
because there's
really
another
hope so.
man.
Oh
And
yeah.
we've got Nicholas Martin. We've got Peter McElvenna from Hearts of Oak talking about the alternative media as well. He does a tremendous amount with the states, and I think it's time that we all join together because it's the whole of the Western world.
It is.
Um, Chris, I probably left a few people up. It just gives people a flavour of the. We've got somebody talking about the police force. We've got somebody talking about getting ourselves on a higher plane. That's Joe Sinclair and Karen Stokes. We've got the police force. You name it. It's a fantastic day out.
Well, there you go. I shall
Oh,
leave any links in the video
oh no!
description.
And just one more. I've nearly forgot. Mark Taylor. Mark from
Oh, you
your
got
half of the
Scouse
world.
going there as well, have you?
Scouse is coming. I
Scouse
can't.
is going.
We can't possibly have an event without Scouse. I mean, it's just
Oh,
not possible. The fact that he didn't invite me to speak at his is neither here nor there. I've not held it against him, Chris.
well, there you go. Well, I didn't even think about that, to be fair.
No. So,
But,
so there we go. So,
well, it
so
sounds
just under.
amazing, and I'm sure it'll be every bit of the success that it usually is. Fantastic. I will leave the links to everything in the video description. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope
I,
everyone watching it has enjoyed it. And I
I've
will
always
leave you
enjoyed
with
talking.
closing words.
I've always enjoyed talking to you, Chris. The thing to do is we have to take all of this back ourselves. It's no use expecting the cavalry to come over the hill. We are the cavalry.
Exactly. No one's coming to save us. We've got to do it ourselves. There you go. You heard it here first. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.